Congressman Lloyd Doggett is the chair of the House of Ways and Means Health Subcommittee, where he's convened several congressional hearings investigating abuse by pharmaceutical practices. Prior coming to Congress, he served as a justice on the Texas Supreme Court and as a Texas state senator. He has been a leading advocate for Medicare drug price negotiation since long before it was trendy, and authored the most comprehensive and progressive drug price negotiation legislation to ever be introduced. We're very happy to have him here. Congressman Doggett, hello.
Well, thank you, Jocelyn, for that warm introduction. And Peter, you've got it so right. It was encouraging to hear some words from the president today, to see his emphasis on the outrageous drug prices we have to pay, but we need more and better. For so long, manufacturers have abused their monopoly power to extort the world's highest prices from sick and dying Americans. From outrageous price spikes on drugs like EpiPens, the overdose reversal drug naloxone, and HIV medication Daraprim, to capturing best-selling, life-saving medications like Humira. In packet thickets, they hide and extend their patents. Drug companies are using every trick in the book to price gouge patients. Under Trump, of course, these scams continued. The more he talked up fighting the drug companies, the more drug prices rose, and he did nothing. I'm pleased to be joined today by state senators and patient advocates that Public Citizen and Social Security Works have gotten together to discuss the undoing of Trump's widespread damage and ensuring that every American enjoys the right to health care and affordable medications. I'm particularly pleased to be joined by a fellow Texan, Luis, who has worked with our revolution in the Texas Organizing Project, TOP. He's a firefighter, and we've got lots of fires to put out in Texas and, for that matter, across this country. After 4 years of Trump's dithering and delay damaging our health care and his attempts to undermine the Affordable Care Act, President Biden, as Peter noted, has directed HHS Secretary Becerra to release a plan to rein in big pharma price gouging. And it's vital that this plan include existing federal law to directly address big pharma's monopoly power. That's what our discussion's about today. As a congressman and my seatmate on the Ways and Means Committee, and later as California's Attorney General, Secretary Becerra has joined in calls to use that existing federal authority to protect taxpayer investments in pharmaceutical R&D by assuring reasonable prices on the resulting drugs. Every single newly approved drug from 2010 to 2019 involved taxpayer funding, including at the riskiest and costliest stages of development. The COVID-19 vaccines that Americans have the great fortune to benefit from today were mostly developed with a fortune of American taxpayer money. And though taxpayers are really the angel investors underwriting pharmaceutical R&D, there's just no guarantee that many of them will be able to afford the drugs that they've helped to develop. We have a 40-year-old law that allows federal agencies to assure reasonable prices on government-owned inventions, but it's never been exercised. And after President Trump made a last-minute proposal to eliminate this strong but unutilized tool, I led a number of colleagues in opposing the rule, and I'm pleased that last month President Biden revoked it. Now we need to use it. Recently, along with Senators Warren and Klobuchar, I urged Secretary Becerra to exercise this taxpayer protection tool and other tools. Lowering the prices of just a few essential medicines will send a message across the pharmaceutical monopolists that price gouging is no longer to be tolerated. A second tool that Secretary Becerra should utilize is competitive licensing. This is a century-old tool that enables the federal government to waive monopoly patent rights on any inventions, regardless of whether they involve federal funding. Patent holders receive a reasonable royalty fee for the use of their know-how so that other manufacturers can produce the product at a lower price. Competitive licensing has been used on dozens of products, but it's not been used on prescription drugs in decades. Relying on important work by a public citizen, I recently reintroduced my Medicare Negotiation and Competitive Licensing Act. It is landmark legislation to finally lift all of the Republican-imposed ban on drug price negotiation under Medicare and ensure Americans do not pay more for drugs than patients anywhere in the world. This bill really builds on this existing federal authority and requires competitive licenses to be issued anytime a drug manufacturer refuses to negotiate and sell their product at a reasonable price for Americans, including the 30 million of our neighbors who remain uninsured. I commend President Biden on his remarks today, urging Congress to finally lift the Republican ban on prescription drug negotiation. But the scale of his plan must address the full scope of the problem. The depth of suffering from price gouging is so extensive, we shouldn't pick and choose which patients will have to continue to suffer. Too many of my congressional colleagues are ready to once again yield to big pharma. We need the voice of people across America to change that position. And we need to avoid greatly weakening what are already minimal provisions of H.R. 3 that the House passed last year. The administration should be calling on Congress to pass the Medicare Negotiation Competitive Licensing Act, because unlike H.R. 3, this bill unequivocally repeals the ban on negotiation. It ensures that every drug is eligible for negotiation, including generics, newly launched drugs, and taxpayer-financed drugs. And it provides the benefit of lower prices and price spike protections to every American, regardless of whether they have insurance. As the administration awaits comprehensive negotiation legislation, one way to get that legislation and to help now is to use the powerful tool they already have of competitive licensing to enable some good old-fashioned American competition and allow more generics to drive prices down. There are many good policies that the administration should pursue, including cracking down on anti-competitive pay-for-delay deals and assuring patents and FDA exclusivity periods are not stacked to create indefinite monopolies. But until we offer a countervailing restraint on patent monopolies, prescription price gouging will continue. These monopolies are not only stifling competition and enabling sky-high prices, they're really disincentivizing innovation. It's so much easier to make small tweaks, delay new products, and extend existing monopolies rather to invest in the innovative cures for diseases that go untreated. Indeed, over a decade, 74% of all pharmaceutical patent applications weren't for new innovative cures, they were for modifying existing drugs. Big Pharma's greatest innovation has been in finding new ways to extend monopolies and the accompanying outrageous prices. Let's put an end to these abusive practices and ensure that patent monopolies do not stand in the way of pharmaceutical affordability, access, and advancement. The administration has the necessary tools, it just needs to use them, and we need Americans across this country asking them to do just that. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Congressman. That was actually very informative and hopeful. Thank you for being with us and for fighting so hard on this issue. It's very, very, very appreciated.
Thank you.
With the generic pharma comment, reminder to our viewers that our hashtag is generic pharma saves lives for all the reasons the Congressman just said. Is there anything else people can do to help that you can think of, Congressman?
Well, I think they need to be contacting their member of Congress. I think they need to be looking up on the web how much their member of Congress is receiving in contributions, campaign contributions from the pharmaceutical industry. You know, it gives widely to both parties. And while Republicans have been an absolute veto, we need more Democrats to remove the shackles of the pharmaceutical industry that caused the Congress to basically stand impotent as it provided billions of dollars to the pharmaceutical industry in the last year without any restraint on price. We may be about to face big price increases for booster shots for the vaccines, for any therapies that are developed for fighting COVID. We all have a stake right now, and we need to speak up and speak out, because the pharmaceutical industry has more than one lobbyist for every member of Congress, and they're working overtime to assure as little, if anything, is done in Congress or by this administration. People need to speak out now and continue to demand action.